Right then, the big news breaking within the last 40 minutes is that the government has U-turned. This was thanks to legal action brought by Reform UK. Some very clever people behind the scenes with legal brains in Reform UK putting forward all their legal brain power to make this High Court action against the government, which was going to postpone or cancel 30 elections. We spoke about earlier on to one of the candidates. Laila Cunningham is Reform UK's mayoral candidate in London. This won't affect her personally, but Laila, a major victory for Reform UK. You've got a smile on your face?
Yeah, of course. You know, I mean, we forced the government to retreat. And listen, we forced the government to set a dangerous precedent that ministers can delay elections. And it exactly shows why reform matters. We're the only ones that are really properly seriously challenging the government. And don't forget, it was Conservative councils also that wanted to cancel elections. It wasn't only Labour.
You have 10 or 11, I think it's 11 councils that are under Reform UK control now. There were many other councils, of course, that this is affecting. I just wonder, I mean, the government said that the reorganisation of local government was the reason that they were postponing the elections. What happens with that now?
Well, I mean, listen, councils somehow have capacity for diversity strategies, net zero plans, but not for elections. You know, you don't pause democracy for restructuring. You reform institutions after elections, not by cancelling them, in Reform's opinion. And democracy and elections are never optional.
What do you think the government's motivations were? They would argue, of course, it was about the reorganisation of local government. But here we are, their own legal advice saying, you go to court on this and Reform UK are going to beat you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the legal advice didn't change. The law has not changed in any way. It's obvious that the law never allowed this in the first place, and they only discovers it after Reform took legal action and forced the issue into court. And, you know, I think we have a fundamental principle in this country that elections are not optional. You don't get to extend your term as much as you want. The electorate's the only one that can do that.
One of your main opponents is, of course, Labour. They're in major trouble over the weekend because of these smears against Sunday Times journalists, including the multi-award-winning Gabriel Pogrund and the deputy political editor Harry York. I just wonder what your thoughts are on this story, because Starmer has said there'll be a Cabinet Office probe into what happened. But some of the detail in this, £36,000 given by the pro-Starmer Labour Together group. Its former head, Josh Simons, is now an MP. What should happen with that?
I mean, the Labour Party's acting like gangsters. You know, smearing journalists, some of them as foreign agents, I think because they're Jewish.
I mean, it wasn't the Labour Party per se, it was Labour Together, which is a pro-Starmer think tank, but there are very close links, aren't there?
I mean, yeah, you know that think tank is there purely to support the party. And it's, as you said, it's very interlinked. And to suggest that reporters are part of a Russian conspiracy, I mean, it's reckless. And it really chills free speech, because it sends a message that if you're reporting bad things about the government, they're going to come after you. It's basically, it's not, you know, they're fighting scrutiny, basically.
Are you happy to be scrutinised? There are, of course, there've been negative things in the press about you and many of your colleagues in Reform UK from time to time. How do you kind of deal with it? Do you just take it on the chin? Do you fight it? There have been Reform UK politicians who've stopped speaking to certain journalists and cut out various newspapers and so on. What do you think is the correct strategy?
I mean, you say that, but I think you're mentioning just one council. I think Nigel is very, you know, everyone's invited to our press conferences, and Nigel answers questions from a wide range. I think he's answered more questions than any other leader put together. He doesn't shy away from any kind of, scrutiny, because I think scrutiny is important. We have to scrutinise, and we welcome scrutiny because we really have nothing to hide. And listen, a government or a party that's confident in its record doesn't need to intimidate journalists, as Labour have.
Well, let me scrutinise you on one point then. Razia Yousaf, some people say opening the door to a patriotic election pact with the Conservatives. Is that something that you would feel comfortable with?
Listen, I heard what he said. I'm not quite sure that's what he meant. Like, there's a big deal has been made of this story. Number one, I don't think there will be an electoral pact on the left, because I think once Labour associate themselves with the Greens, they've really lost a lot of credibility. Let's not forget who leads the Greens. It's a man who has a different name, who was a Lib Dem, and who used to hypnotise women for larger breasts and take money for really compounding their insecurities.
Okay, I'm sure he would, just to keep us both out of court, I am sure that Zach Polanski would deny compounding people's insecurities through hypnotism, but you're absolutely...
When you hypnotise women for larger breasts, when you know full well that physically that is not possible...
I'm not arguing against that point, Laila.
I think when people know that, his Christmas message was from the border, welcoming illegal migrants. I think people don't actually know how dangerous a Green Party in any kind of leadership role is. And I think if the Labour choose to associate themselves with, then it really shows that they're just in it for power and not in it for the best of the country. So I don't think they would be that suicidal as to form a coalition with the left. And listen, reform is here to implement the radical change that we need as government. And
But how radical can you be when actually you may be in a situation, this is totally hypothetical, but you could hypothetically be in a situation where you need the Conservatives, and actually what's not hypothetical is that you've taken a load of former Conservatives on board. Robert Jenrick, now one of your MPs. In fact, 7 of your 8 MPs have at one stage or the other been either Conservative MPs or members of the Conservative Party or donors to the Conservative Party.
Yeah, because these are the people that recognise that the Conservative Party has betrayed the country and they want to put it right. There's nothing wrong with recognising that you are part of a team that got things wrong. And
we're just slightly struggling with the line there, Laila. We'll try and get you back on the line in just a second. That's Laila Cunningham, who is Reform UK's mayoral candidate in London. Oh, we have you back, Laila. You were cut off in your prime there by the technology. Just finish that point, please. Go ahead, Laila.
Me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, just make that point again, if you would.
I think it takes courage to be part of a party, leave that party, recognise that you got things wrong and want to make change. And that takes courage, and it takes a certain kind of person to join Reform, and that person always puts the country before the party.
That's a slightly different way of saying what your party colleague in Kent, the leader of Kent County Council, who I had a fascinating interview with a few weeks ago, said expecting someone not to have political views before they join Reform UK, which is a new party, of course, or a reasonably new party, is like expecting a woman to be a virgin on her wedding night, which was a particularly interesting and very funny phrase, I thought, what she said on the air. You want to be Reform UK's first London mayor. Tell us about your plan to put homeless veterans before asylum seekers. What is the plan here?
Well, there is already legislation that says that you should prioritise veterans for social housing, but that's not happening in London. We have refugees are put to the top of the list in certain councils. In fact, 15 London councils have declared themselves sanctuary councils for refugees. And for us, that is shameful that newcomers are put to the top of the housing list while the men and women that serve this country with their life are sleeping rough. And so our promise to veterans is that you will be prioritised for social housing, and we will look at community ties and local ties, and those who are from the local community will also go to the top of the list. Because right now, Peter, people don't realise there is legislation in the Equalities Act and 2 other legislations, I forget the name, where you cannot prioritise British people for social housing because it says that you cannot discriminate on the basis of nationality. And our argument is, of course you must prioritise British people, because if you're not prioritising your own country, where can you be? But there's nothing we can do about that now. Only when a Reform government comes will British people finally be prioritised for social housing.
What would your stance be on, if you became Mayor of London, on anti-Semitism? Because we know that there was some criticism of Nigel Farage for these historic things. I mean, we're talking 49 years ago, things he may or may not have said. He denies it. We'll set that to one side for the meantime, because it's a straightforward he said, she said argument, unless you want to talk about it, which you can. But the catalyst for my question is that Matt Lucas, the comedian and performer, was heckled by someone. He, to my knowledge, has never expressed a view on the Middle East or said anything public about any type of specifically Middle Eastern political issue, yet he was heckled on the tube. I mean, that's straightforwardly harassment. What do you think the Mayor of London should do? What would you as Mayor of London do? And what do you think that British Transport Police should do too?
Well, I think there should be a straight message from the mayor and from the leadership of London that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated. And if there are people who are marching for the death of Jews or the destruction of Israel, they've got to be stopped and prosecuted if necessary. I have my best friends are Jewish, and they tell me that they won't let their teenage boys walk around with the Star of David. That is not the London I grew up in, and that's not the London I want. And if London doesn't feel safe for Jewish people, then it's not safe for any of us. And I do speak to Jewish communities who feel that they only get the protection they want after a terrorist attack. And they feel that they're always asking for more protection and they're not quite getting the protection they need. So I would ensure that Jews feel safe, and that, synagogues and centers of worship and schools have the full protection that they need.
You're a Muslim yourself, Laila, and I just wonder why it is that you think that you've spoken out very, very clearly on that, no ambiguity in what you're saying. There's so many people who say, where are all these, moderate, straightforward Muslims, people contributing to the country like you're standing for office. I admire that in anybody from any party. Why is it, do you think, that there aren't more people who come out and call this stuff out?
Maybe people just want a quiet life. They just want to put their head down, get on with it, and not be attacked. I mean, listen, I've been called all kinds of stuff by all sides. But for me, it's important that people recognize that my religion that I prescribe to, it doesn't ask you to cover your face. It doesn't, there's no relation to radical Islam that you've been seeing flourish in this country. And it's, I want to show a different side to Muslims, British Muslims. And listen, I don't want to be known as a British Muslim. I just want to be known as British.
Yeah, exactly.
If someone asked me, it's not about that. Someone asked me the other day, did you suffer racism because you're Muslim when you were young? And I said, you know what, frankly, no one cared. No one knew I was Muslim, not because I hid it, but no one asked. It was just, you took people at face value, not what religion they were, where they were from. And
yeah, and wouldn't it be great if we could have a society like that where we just judge people?
Go back to that.
Yes,
where it's based on law and merit.
Thank you, Laila. We're just struggling with the line again, but we'll leave it there. But that's Laila Cunningham there, who is the mayoral candidate for London for Reform UK. There was